I'm not kidding when I say this, but many Florida real estate agents are saying that Zohran Mamdani is the #1 realtor in the entire state of Florida for 2025. Why is that? Well, he just won the New York City mayoral race, and many Florida realtors are expecting Florida to boom because of it. And as a Floridian that was born in Brooklyn, New York, and I still have family there, my dad still lives in Brooklyn, I feel like I have a different perspective on all this that's going to be contrary to everything that all these Florida realtors are saying. So in today's video, we'll unpack the New York City mayoral election and why this may be a signal for another relocation boom. We'll also talk about how the state of Florida could be affected by this huge change up there in New York City. And then we'll also talk about what's going to happen here locally in St. Augustine. So you've probably heard about Zohran Mamdani and him coming into the New York City mayoral race and really just going pretty much the contrarian position of what was in New York before. You had Cuomo and Curtis Silva, and pretty much all they were saying is like, hey, we're going to keep the status quo going of what's happening here in New York City. And Mamdani came out and said, hey, I'm looking to shake things up radically. And he really spoke to that younger buyer. He really spoke to that younger person living in New York City who finds it to be unaffordable and to feel that the wealth gap is widening. And if you think it's widening here in Florida, you don't know anything about New York City. Let me tell you, the wealth gap is humongous. And in reality, this actually mirrors what we saw in our presidential election just last year. We had Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as the VP. Then Kamala Harris comes in as potential president-elect, and she says, hey, I'm going to do the same thing as Joe Biden. Many people who were not a big fan of what happened over the past 4 years with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris decided to vote the contrarian, and they voted for Donald Trump, who came in and is saying and doing a lot of radical things this past year. So out of nowhere, a 34-year-old politician wins the mayoral race in New York City, which is huge. And it's a big deal because a lot of the policies that he's talking about are things that could push people down to Florida. He talked on some of the pain points such as affordability, rent freezes, and lowering regulations so that they could build more affordable housing. He also talks about, and as we know, in New York City, things are extremely expensive. And he really spoke to the majority of people that live there that can't afford to live in New York City in general. So he ran on policies such as the affordability and making more affordable housing in New York City. How he's going to do that, I have no clue. I don't think he's going to be able to, but that's what he ran on, and that's what people voted for. He also ran on rent freezes because the rent in New York City is crazy. What you spend $3,000 a month for there would probably get you a pool home here with like a quarter acre of land. He also ran on a policy of taxing the wealthy more. He wants to raise taxes on the wealthy by 2%, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but for the people that already pay a good majority of the taxes in New York City, they may not like that. So when people see these radical changes in New York City where it's already high cost, high regulations, it does make them pose the question to themselves like, hey, is now the time to move? If New York City becomes less predictable for these high net worth earners, a lot of them are probably going to consider moving to a low tax state with a better lifestyle than what they're finding in New York City right now. Now, personally, I think that this is completely overblown. You're seeing news stories, you're seeing memes, you're seeing all these jokes like Mamdani's the best realtor in the state of Florida, or that, oh, this one realtor in Connecticut or New Jersey is now getting 20, 30, 40 offers on the home that they had listed for 2 months all of a sudden, right? We're seeing the news stories surrounding this. But in reality, how many people are actually going to leave the city of New York just because of the mayoral change? We all know that politicians overpromise and underdeliver. Right? So he could come in with all these great policies that sound fantastic, but is he actually going to get them to the table? Is he actually going to get signatures on all these things that he wants to do? No, he's not. I'm just being real. I don't think it's going to happen at all. This is honestly, it's just a media frenzy just based around the policies that he has because it's very extreme. At the end of the day, he's still got to pass all of this through the state of New York, and more than likely, none of it's going to get passed. And do you think that wealthy people might know that? Yeah, if you're wealthy, you tend to be a little bit smarter. You're a little bit slyer than most people. You probably are aware that this isn't going to change very much in New York City, though it may sound good and it may appease a population for 4 years, but more than likely nothing's going to change. On top of that, you got New York City, one of the most resilient places in the world. It's the greatest city in the entire world, right? We got 9/11. We got Hurricane Sandy. We got the Wall Street issue. We got the global pandemic that just hit them 5 years ago, and really they didn't start recovering until about 2 or 3 years ago. And still, New York is back and better than ever, right? In terms of pricing, real estate, all that kind of stuff. Maybe you think it's different, in terms of better than ever. New York City is a resilient place. The people that live there are resilient. New Yorkers, who are born, bred New Yorkers, are not leaving. My dad grew up on 41st Street between 4th and 5th Avenue in Brooklyn, lives on 40th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue in Brooklyn. He leaves Brooklyn for a week or two, he gets itchy, he gets bored, he wants to be in the city, he loves it. That's not going to change whether Zohran Mamdani's mayor or whether Cuomo is mayor. Doesn't matter to him. He's staying home. But I do see some potential with many of the people who move to New York that create a career there, and then they're also they're going through life changes as well. So many people that move to New York go there because they want the lifestyle, they want to live in the big city, they want to do something adventurous, and they maybe might get a good career when they live in New York as well. If they have that good career, they're living in New York City, and they're also going through like the natural stages of life, they're eventually going to get a wife, they're eventually going to have a dog, and they're eventually going to have a family, right? And the confinement of New York City, the prices of the real estate there, to actually have a little bit of elbow room is pretty strict. You're not going to be able to do that for many, many people. So a lot of people, the life cycle of most people is they move to New York, they get a good job, they get a family, and a lot of times they're either bouncing out to the outer boroughs, they're bouncing out to New Jersey, Connecticut, Staten Island maybe, who knows. Tons of different areas for them to go where they get a little bit more elbow room. There's some people that commute from Pennsylvania to New York City multiple times a week because they can get the affordability out there, they get the lifestyle, but they get the pay and the good job in New York City. I think the potential for this happening right now is going to be just a little bit more of a push out the door. For the people who are thinking, you know what, I'm probably going to do this in the next 1 to 3 years because I'm expecting to have a baby, or I want a little bit more elbow room, or I want a single family home with a garage where I can park my car. Thousands of reasons amongst it, but most of those people might decide to accelerate that timeline because the real estate market will probably take a little bit of a hit, just speaking in generalities, right? Because most of the people there are thinking you're going to get a Mamdani discount, right? People are going to be fleeing the city, so then there's going to be a stagnant real estate market. So you could take advantage of that, right? So you can go in New York City and buy something that maybe at a percentage discount that you wouldn't have before if Cuomo were to have won the New York City mayoral race. So those people who are like, hey, you know what, in 1 to 3 years, I was going to leave anyway, regardless of what was going to happen with the mayoral situation, just because my family situation changed. This, with the new New York City mayoral-elect, Zohran Mamdani, I think is going to push those people over the fence to wherever they want to go. Are they going to go down to Florida? Potentially. More than likely, they're going to go to Connecticut, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Because in reality, that's where most of the people who live in New York City and they want elbow room go to. Because at the end of the day, they still have access to New York City, a place that they love. Now, there are people that will move to Florida, right? Now, these people are more than likely not real New Yorkers. They're not from the tri-state area. When I was living in New York, I was living there in my 20s. Many of the people that lived in New York, worked in New York City, were coming from areas. I was like, man, what are you doing out here from Michigan? What are you doing out here from Ohio? They're coming from the middle of the country to live in New York City because that's their dream. They wanted to do that, right? So maybe they stayed, they powered through the pandemic, they got a good job, and this is just like the straw that broke the camel's back. They may move to Florida, right? It's potential, but in reality, they're probably just going to go back to their home state. So is there going to be a boom or a bust here in Florida? That remains to be seen. Maybe I'm completely wrong. This is just me speaking candidly, honestly. There hasn't really been too many cuts in this video. I'm just going through what I personally think. But there will be that wealthy individual, that company that runs its business in New York City that says, you know what, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to move to South Florida. And that's the biggest distinction here, right? They're going to move to South Florida because that's where all the other millionaire billionaires are moving to here in the state of Florida. More than likely, they're going to be where all the hustle and bustle is, which is going to be Miami and maybe Naples and really just that whole area in South Florida. They're going to get a different lifestyle. I wouldn't say it's necessarily better, but it's definitely a different lifestyle than what they're used to. They're going to get lower regulations. They're going to be around more billionaires and millionaires because that's where all of them went during the pandemic, and they probably now have a second home there, still living in New York City. But they're also just going to get out of New York City and everything that they have to deal with there. So do I think Florida will have some type of impact from this mayoral election? Yes. but very minor. It's overblown. He's, being the #1 realtor in the state of Florida is honestly from realtors that don't know their ass from their elbow. Like, most of them are jokes. And I'm just being real with you. I work in the industry. It's honestly kind of sad how some of these people call themselves a real estate agent and a realtor and actually think they provide a value. Most of them suck. This is just me being real with you guys. I don't like to say that. I wish the standards were better in real estate, but that's what it is. But they're also expecting that someone's just going to uproot their entire life because a mayor with differing opinions got in there. Now, he does have some radical opinions. Most people would say he's very far left. When you're asking me like, hey, like, does affordable housing sound good? Yeah, it sounds good to me. Does, free buses sound good? Yeah, I mean, considering that most people that don't have enough money ride the bus. Does, cheaper groceries sound good? Yeah, actually, that sounds kind of familiar because our president was just elected because he was going to lower cost of living and inflation and all that kind of stuff. That's a side note, right? But is it realistic to think that he's going to be able to do all this? No, it's not. It's not at all. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think he's going to be able to do anything meaningful. But the sentiment is nice, right? We like people that come in and say nice things. They're going to tell you all this great stuff. It's not going to happen. Either way, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. Am I dead wrong? Will Florida see a boom? Will it see a bust? I think it's just going to be more of the same. Certain areas may see a boom. Certain areas may see a bust. I don't know. New York City, I don't think is going to be one of them. I think there could be a potential deal in sight for you to buy a place in New York City right now because of the uncertainty. In reality, New York is going to keep steaming along. It's going to keep being the best city in the United States, best city in the world, and it's going to keep growing. So, unfortunately, I don't think anything's going to change, but I do think the state of Florida is overreacting. I think realtors here are overreacting, and I think in general the media is overreacting. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Until next time.